Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression. And we're back with another episode of the Compression Podcast, and I couldn't be more excited. I missed my man last week, and we utilized that time to remind everybody, what a compressor is. And I had to kind of remind myself a little bit these past couple of weeks. But setting the intentionality for this week is thinking bigger. And this has been an interesting perspective for me because, I talk to a lot of people that are not where we are at and a lot of people that are on top of where we're at and not that many, honestly, that are kind of right where we're at. And so I think recently I have been talking with a lot of people that are trying to figure out what we've, figured out to get to where we are. And, it got me thinking after reading What It Takes by Stephen Schwartzman, by listening to Ed Milet, to listening to other guys that you send me and other folks that are playing the game at a higher level. MJ DeMarco is another one. It makes me uncomfortable. So the intentionality in a good way. So the intentionality this week is, okay, where you're at right now, how do you think bigger? And how is that actually, not just complete at the theoretical level, but effective at the applied level? And I've been doing a lot of reading. If you guys have been following along the last couple of weeks, I said I haven't been doing much reading. Well, I'll tell you about why I've been doing a lot of reading and how it is pulling things out of me, like Marcus Rubio said. Not what did you get out of the book? What did the book get out of you? And that is an instrumental question and the way to flip that question to be more successful on that. So, Jerome, how are you doing, man? How's life over there?
Trying to figure this thing out, dude. It's funny. I've had a few calls and been challenged, right?
Yeah.
Like, Jerome, you think you're playing at the top of the game, but you haven't even scratched the surface of your potential yet, bud.
Yeah.
Like, what? And then they start going down the list of why. I'm like, okay, what do we do about that? Well, make this investment, do this, do that. And I'll tell you, man, it's scary.
It is scary.
Right? Because then it's like, well, what do I do if that doesn't work? Right?
That's right.
And all of the emotions of the lean times come back and the questions of, is this the right time? Is it in the right sequence?
Mm-hmm.
And as we're all out here in this environment of trying to become our best selves, we've got to lean into some of this stuff and place the bets. And, one of my weaknesses is the gift of discernment. There are some people who are able to get over on me because I don't spend a bunch of time trying to figure out if your intentions are pure.
Right.
I come with you and I come to sit with you with the understanding that we're going to do the right things together and that you have my best intention in heart as I do with you. And I find out the hard way too often that just isn't the case. And so really trying to be intentional and, every time I up level my network, I experience less and less of people questioning that,
Sure.
or having those experiences where I have to question whether or not people are trying to do things the right way.
Yeah.
And as soon as I get a flicker, I've got this really sharp sword and it's just severed immediately because I know what going down that path in the past has done. So really just, man, taking inventory of where I am and then really doing everything that I can to be the guy that gets the call,
Mm-hmm.
right? when everything's on the line, when things are intense, am I truly the guy that gets the call, or are they going to call Anthony Trucks or Brandon Burchard or Tony Robbins? I aspire to be in that conversation, man.
Absolutely, man. Well, you are well on your way, and I can say that from experience. And I want to first give a shout out before I forget. All of the folks that reached out recently about the Compression Podcast, there seems to be an upward trend. And I don't know if it's the number. I don't know if we've shown up for 9 months, but thank you all to reaching out to me, setting up calls and chatting about how this is impacting you, because I really love those calls, and they never put them in the Calendly notes. Hey, we want to thank you about compression. It's, hey, interested in learning more about what you're doing, and then on the call, hey, by the way, really enjoyed that last episode. I listened to every single one. I'm like, what? You listened to every single one? He's like, yeah, man. Finish Strong Fridays is what gets me going every single Friday, and I look forward to seeing what you guys put out every Monday. And I'm like, now that is cool. That is a responsibility now that we are shouldering. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all the listeners that have recently reached out. This is what we're doing it for, is for impact. It's not for downloads. It's not for leads. It's for impact, because all of that stuff comes if you have enough impact, especially after listening to Ed Milet and Brad Lee, and he's got his own unique voice, that is for sure. But that guy must be crushing it as well. But it's a lot of fun, to listen to guys like Ed Milet said, yeah, I'll pick you up in the Turbo Express or whatever on the way down to the conference. And Brad Lee's like, what? Okay, I'll see you then. He's going to go pick him up in a jet. So anything is possible. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you this week, I have woke up extremely uncomfortable every single day. Not physically because I'm playing golf or had 20,000 steps yesterday, which I did. That was unreal. 20,000 steps in a day. I cannot fathom how that worked out, but I was pretty tired last night. But at the end of the day, it's because of things going on in my business that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about how to use being uncomfortable to your advantage, and what is called inspirational dissatisfaction. That's where I am at right now. I am inspirationally dissatisfied. and I know that's kind of a juxtaposition, but I believe it was Clement Stone or Napoleon Hill, one of the grandfathers of this industry, coined that term. And at the end of the day, it means, hey, you're inspired, you're not content, you might be comfortable, but you see what's on the other side. And so you're dissatisfied, but inspired at the same time. And those two mix of emotions pull you on a regular basis, which, has made me wake up uncomfortable. And yeah, sure, I'm going through challenges. I've got problems to solve, but that's what we're here to do as entrepreneurs in this business, is solve problems. And I have a great quote on that front at the end. So I think this is going to be a great show, man. We're going to talk more about this uncomfortability that I've been feeling, and how it's been impacting me negatively and positively. Because one thing I learned is, around every corner, I can't get away from this space. I can't get away from this brain. No matter where I go, there I am, ladies and gentlemen. No matter where I go, there I am. And I've been asking myself this question: where in the heck does this fire, this internal desire to be the best that you can be, come from? And I do not, and we've talked about this recently, but man, I'm getting the goosebumps. If you guys can see this, my hair is standing up on my arms, and I just feel this fire of, I cannot be mediocre. I cannot be just another guy, what Ryan Bennett calls a jag. I have to be the best that I am capable of being. And that's the definition of success from John Wooden, my first coach in life, honestly. And I think that it's important to realize that, but it's also important not to just pour gasoline on that fire, because man, it's going to burn bright for, a little bit, but it's going to burn out. It's going to burn out. You got to be feeding that fire logs so it stays hungry all of the time, which is the sustainability that we talk about. So let's get on into this, man, because this is an interesting topic that I think a lot of people probably do not know how to verbalize, right? If you can't name it, you can't tame it. And so today we're naming this inspirational dissatisfaction. Before we get jumping into this, Jerome, any thoughts on inspirational dissatisfaction, feeling uncomfortable, any of those topics you want to talk about real quick?
No, let's rock and roll. I'll bring it up later.
Okay, so this week was a big week for me in regards to continuing to look at my business in a way that helps me think bigger. And I'm going to explain this in a way that I hope is easy to grasp. Okay, so at the end of the day, we've done a little bit of work this year. I'll say a little bit of work. We've done some work this year. We've got changing market dynamics going on in the marketplace. People are asking me, how are you going to keep finding deals? How are you going to keep doing this? What are you going to do because of that? Where's interest rates going? Delta variant, Afghanistan, Haiti, bring it on, man. I mean, all of that run into a big old softball and thrown at your face every single day. And I started to feel a little bit of that. And like I mentioned, I've been reading some books. So I'm going to lay these books out that I've been reading and podcasts. Okay. So MJ DeMarco wrote The Millionaire's Fast Lane, Unscripted. He just came out with this book, Escape the Rat Race. Now, his books have always made me extremely uncomfortable. And that's what they are there for. It is the most contrarian books out there on the marketplace, if you ask me. I mean, most people will pick those books up and set them right back down and say, nope, not for me, because you're going to feel challenged. One guy that comes to mind is John. John Blanton. Yes, John. Yes, because he's got the contrarian cash flow, right? And I sent these books to him and I said, man, you got to read these things because it makes you think differently. It makes you uncomfortable. And so I've read that book every single morning. I've read What It Takes by Stephen Schwartzman, which is the CEO of Blackstone. I have been continually reading the Real Estate Titans book, which are guys that are, where I want to go to, and they're talking about their stories and their lives. I've been reading Ed Milet. I've been going back and listening to Mark Acosta Rubio. All of these guys that are setting their lives up in a way that is not unique, is unique, and it's not normal that you hear about on a regular basis. And so and Dr. Jeff Spencer will be the last one that I'll mention. Okay, so the corner man. I've dubbed Jerome as my corner man now. So anybody that talks to me about Jerome, I say, yeah, well, I got my corner man. He said, who's your corner man? They're like, what's that? And I'm like, whoa. You don't know what that is, then we gotta get in trouble. So
I talked to Dr. Spencer on Tuesday. He's one of those guys who's challenging me right now. Second week in a row, we had a 2-hour call, man.
Okay. So Dr. Jeff Spencer is on another level. And if you don't know him, go check him out. But all of those things have said, okay, Logan, you've had a goal to accomplish $100 million of real estate. It's going to be a big push, guys. It's going to be a big push before we get to the end of the year. We will be there. We will get there. We will surpass the goal. However, at the end of the day, I have my sights have now started to be set on, okay, what is next? What is the next iteration of your business? Where are you headed? How are you going to start thinking bigger? And Stephen Schwartzman's book really is pushing me to think bigger. And so I've got some new goals that I'm going to kind of tell you guys a little bit about today. But what it's been doing is making me ask better questions of myself so I can receive better answers. And where I want to start this conversation out, Jerome, is what do you think the biggest holdback for people trying to achieve goals and why they set them so low? Is it because they follow the SMART goals, the specific, measurable, attainable, related, or time intensive? Or why are people not thinking bigger? Where do people get held back at, man? That's what I wanted to ask you first.
It's funny. Andrew Kutzman was asking me the same question on LinkedIn through Messenger earlier this week because he was talking about his goals and then he was asking me about mine. And I was like, dude, I usually don't hit my goals. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And it's like, well, they're pretty aggressive, right? And so for me, if I don't hit it, it's okay because of who I became in the process of trying to do the thing.
Yes.
Right. You literally, if we just think about this concept of compression, right? You literally said, I'm a 3X what I've ever done in a year.
Right.
3 times. Like, and I know Grant will say, oh, well, it's not big enough. You got to 10X it. But who can triple production in a single year? I just don't know many people who are capable of doing it. And so for me, people are scared to set a target because they feel like it's failure if they don't reach it in the timeline that they've laid out. And I don't think the time hitting the goal in the timeline they laid out is as important as having this North Star that you're chasing and getting closer and closer and closer to it. Now, I do believe that you need to accomplish it. I do think that there is a big difference between a dream chaser and a dream catcher.
Sure.
But I don't think that you shrink down the goal because you've got this window of time that you are trying to get it fit in. And honestly, man, look, part of the reason why you're doing what you're doing is because we're coming into the fourth quarter and you don't want to get to the end of the game and then start looking for the next mountain to climb. Like, for the people who ask me about the $100 million goal, I tell them that the outcome's inevitable, right? And when you know that it's imminent, when you know that it's going to happen, while you can't take your eye off the ball, you do have to know that there's something on the other side of it, because if not, then you go all the way to zero. Right. And you don't ever want to go to zero, right? If you look at people who do fundraising, those little thermometers are never at zero. Right. There's always at least something in the bubble, but usually there's something up along the thermostat or the thermometer to let you know that there's some progress. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when people aren't hitting big goals or setting small goals, it's because that's what they believe is achievable. And one thing that Jeff Spencer's talked to me about is the difference between believing and knowing, right? Conceptually, you believe that this thing is possible. Knowing means that the outcome is imminent. And when you know, everything changes, because you talk about the physiology and the state and all this other stuff, right? And so what happens is you believe or you know, and then you take action, you get the results from the action, and that confirms or refutes the thing that you believed or you knew. And the more congruency you get between those, it becomes a flywheel. And all of a sudden, the things that you thought were impossible become very practical. Yes. And then you're looking at the new state and you're asking this very simple question: how did I ever live like that? How did I ever live off that? Like, from an income perspective, I was just having this conversation over the weekend. It was like, I did X amount of dollars last month and the month before and the month before, and I feel like I'm only making half as much as I need to make. I told you, right, when we were talking about, hey, here's where I want you to be by the end of the year. You're like, that's an interesting number, right? But when you think about when you were living in a roach infested apartment, right, and how much money you were making at that point, and you think about today, like, how'd you live off that? Right. And I mean, we could talk about income, we can talk about vehicles, we could talk about spouse, you can talk about anything, but people are scared to leave behind the person that they were or the person they are to become so that they can have that thing that they want. Back to Marco talking about, what did it get out of you? Yes. Right. This journey is about getting the best you out instead of you getting stuff in.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about thinking bigger. And if you haven't read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, go read that book. The journey is the destination, and who you become because of striving to achieve these goals is what is most important. And I will tell you, I have not tracked my income nearly as close that I have the last 3 years, ladies and gentlemen. And I will tell you, it is 3 times higher than it has been the last 3 years. When you stop focusing so much on that end result and the person that you need to become, the activities you need to take to achieve those things start to be magnetic. And I always want to be magnetic. I want things coming and being attracted to me. And manufacturing opportunity out of thin air is what I get paid to do. That is the brilliance that I bring to the table. And you cannot pinpoint every single activity that I do that brings those things. It's everything put together that creates that. It's the person that I am. It's the responses that I have. It's the transparency that I put into the business. It's the willingness to have hard conversations instead of brushing it under the rug and sending an email. I tell you what, all of those things have attracted things into my life from day one, from Taylor, my wife. I wrote down on a piece of paper, what's this person look like? What do they value? Then I said, who do you have to become to attract that into your life? You have to do that, guys. We're talking about thinking bigger, setting bigger goals. And one thing that I didn't mention, what you said about goals is why goals suck sometimes. And we've had a podcast episode just about this, because you set that little goal or that goal and you don't achieve it. But then all you can think about is trying to get to that one little thing. And then you actually execute, or you eliminate different activities that you would have previously taken because you're so fixated on this one thing. And that's why you have to be careful with goals. They have to be organic. They have to be fluid. They have to be moving all of the time. And that's where I'm at. That's where the space is that my head is at right now is, okay, we've got 11 employees. We're at the $100 million of assets under management. We've got all of this construction to do. The market is shifting on us. Debt's still cheap. Where are the opportunities? How do I build a business that continues to sustain ups and downs? Because it's not always going to be a great time to buy real estate. And then I got real with myself and I said, man, Logan, you haven't bought very many deals this year. And I went back, I bought 5 deals this year. I bought 5 deals. And, I keep saying, oh, we haven't done that many transactions. Well, that's malarkey. We're doing 162 right now, 108. We did 12 units. We did 47 units. We did 49 units. We did 52 units. And so, come on, man, be realistic with yourself. Where are you living at? You look at the paper and it's right there. You look at the number of compression, it's there. So sometimes you got to have a reality check with yourself, and you can't live in la la land as well. And you got to pat yourself on the back for where you've come. And one thing that I've realized too is being okay with where you are right now compared to other people. You have to stop comparing yourself to other folks. One guy that keeps popping out is this Rise 48 Equity out in Phoenix, Arizona. And I think those guys are crushing it or whatever. And they're doing all these acquisitions and things like that. And I see the stuff and people mention him on phone calls. And I'm like, no, I don't know him. It looks like everything's going well out there. It's a market I'm not really familiar with. But you have to realize they are doing the same size of transactions that we are, but they are double, sometimes triple the price per door that we are doing. And so and I'm not knocking, asset classes, valuations, whatever. All I'm saying is I had to get real with myself, look at the size of transactions they're doing. It's the same here. We just buy at 55 a door, not 155 a door. It's just different. It's just different. So you got to be careful watching that comparison kind of creep, slip in a little bit. So that was a great segue into some big wins for the week, guys. 3 weeks ago, we talked about what do I need to do to hit this goal of building this network, and talked about the habits that I have on the sheet. And Jerome challenged me to say, how are you going to build that network to get where you want to go? And so I'm proud to say this week I have done more deep work than I have the last month and a half combined. So I've got the transformational exit strategy going for sellers. I've got the network building. How am I going to get to $100 million of equity raised next year in a fund structure potentially? I've got all these things going on in my head, out on paper, presented to the team, and said, I want you guys to know this is where my head and my focus is at. And this is how I'm going to get around the people that I'm going to do this, to accomplish these goals. So that was a huge win, was working on the transformational exit strategy, working on the network building, working on getting some people in the door for interviews on the investor relations piece. I will tell you guys this, the last 4 weeks, I brought in over 125 new accredited investor leads, 125 new accredited investor leads. The last 4 months, I have not done 125 combined, and that is through one new medium that we are doing. And so, that's a new challenge, right? How do I build relationships with all these people? How do I keep that systemization going? How do I make sure they're not dropping through the into the cracks. How do I make sure I'm on the phone whenever they're ready? How do I make sure they're understanding what we do, why we do it, and why we're different? Very exciting stuff. But that creates a new challenge for me to find an investor relations person that can support that side of our business. So that was a huge win as well, man, is figuring out how to get in front of more people. And every day I wake up, every minute I check my email, there's new leads in my inbox, which, creates some uncomfortable situation for me, because in the past I would say, okay, give me that number. I'm gonna call that person right now, but I have to be cautious to put them in the system. So huge wins there as well.
Whoa. 125 in a week?
It would be 3 weeks.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And it's a part of the different talk track that I've had on podcasts. It's a part of launching some pay-per-click advertising. It's a part of, referrals. It's all of these things that are happening, but it's coming to a head, and it's creating a new challenge for me to figure out how I service all of these investors. But yes, big flow going on right now, which is great. So what are some other wins? I had to embrace the grind, guys. Mondays are tough. Mondays are tough in the sense that Mondays are the days we set intentions for all the week, for all the employees, for what we do in that week, what we need to get accomplished, and usually solving problems. And so Mondays are tough, but this Monday I came in with a renewed perspective. I knew it was going to be tough. I framed it in the way of, this is what you do. This is the challenge. This is the goal. This is the brilliance, is to solve these things and be objective about it. So I embraced the grind on Monday. I've been transparent and open, even if the conversations have not been easy. I've held people accountable. I have said no more this week than I can remember, which is all really important things, which has led for me the ability to take action on profit producing activities and $10,000 tasks. And I've had to trust that the people that we have put in place in our business can handle things that I was previously doing. And that is not an easy place to be all of the time. And so that's been really, really great. And that was a huge win from this past week. Was, okay, taking extreme ownership, sure. But then, do I eliminate, automate, or delegate, right? It's the focus funnel. And I know we haven't done a debrief on the focus funnel 100% yet because I'm still going through it. But I'm going to give you guys weekly updates on that as well. Okay, so huge wins on some of those fronts. The network building stuff. So I got a sheet open up here on my other screen that I'm looking at, or it's open. And I decided to put a list together. Okay, my goal was 52 people worth 5 to 200 million. Who do I know in Kansas City that fits that criteria? I'm already up to 26 people that I can build relationships with without asking for referrals, without any of those things. And say, okay, where do these people hang out? What do I need to do? I took action. So the action I took was getting the actual process for network building put together, putting the list together, working with the team on who they know, who I need to be meeting, and how do I get around these people. I did two things. One was create the system, track the list, keep iterating on it. Number two, we talked a lot about country clubs, and I vetted out a bunch of them. I went and took action. I put a deposit down on Leewood Country Club right down the house here. It's going to be perfect for the kids. It's 5 minutes away from the house. I'm on the waiting list for next year. But I decided that I wanted to get in front of younger families that could invest with us for a longer period of time. And this is a neighborhood that's rolling over. So people that are 55 to 75 are selling their homes, and guess who's moving in? My exact avatar, because they're not cheap homes. They're getting renovated, or they move in and renovate themselves. But guess what's across the street? Well, there's the pool, there's the fitness center, there's the golf course. That's where these folks are going to be hanging out. So took action on that. Hopefully be in to the country club, by January of next year, which will be a great place for me to build that network. So making connections. I played golf yesterday with a couple guys that one current investor, one guy that we are definitely working to get into our business on some level. Showed up in his Bentley. I know he probably won't listen to this, so that's I can say that. I'm not going to say any names, but at the end of the day, I gave him a swag bag, and he said, "Yeah, just meet me over here by my car." And I walked up, and I was like, "Man, I don't know what brand that is." I said, "Hey, what is that? I feel like I might have seen that in a music video or something before." And and it was a convertible Bentley. And I was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know they even sold those here in Kansas City." He said, "They don't. They don't." I went out and found it somewhere else. So anyways, that was pretty cool. So taking action every week, making sure I'm spending time with people that can either refer me to those types of folks or building those relationships. And people ask, "Okay, well, what are you going to do in those meetings?" Well, I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to make connections. I'm going to talk about values. I'm not going to talk about business until they bring it up. I'm going to do all these things. So whenever they think about commercial real estate, multifamily, investing, they're like, "Oh, man, I spent 4 hours with Logan on the golf course. I should call him on this." And that's a part of that being magnetic. So taking some action on the network building stuff, which I'm really excited about, Jerome. The second part of the network building, the FTW podcast. And I'm pretty excited about this. I'm thinking through this very thoroughly. I actually think we are going to launch more of a television show with seasons and episodes, highly produced. Maybe try to get a radio spot. I don't know yet, and get it syndicated across the country. Don't know how to do that. Don't know who you talk to, any of that stuff. But my thought was, what if
I can help with that?
I know you can. What if I could get 50 people that fit that avatar that aren't in Kansas City on the show live, talking about what they invest in, why they haven't invested in commercial real estate, where they see the markets going, their experience, their background, and having a live conversation with investors, and then bringing on current investors and talking about their experience, bringing on one subject matter expert per month, and then also bringing some fire for myself on some things that I want to talk about. So I think that through the country club, through the referrals, through doing the in-person stuff here in Kansas City, and the FTW potential podcast that we're going to be launching, I can absolutely hit my goal of meeting with 52 of those folks and building those relationships. So I feel very good about that. It's a huge undertaking. But when I think about my $10,000 task, what is more important than me meeting with those types of people on a regular basis? And so, so that comes from you, that comes from Ryan Smith, it comes from Steven Schwartzman. And I also, asked myself a funny question the other day. If you guys read Steven Schwartzman, his first fund was $1 billion. Okay. So,
with a B?
You have to remember, he came from Lehman Brothers, was a managing director at Lehman Brothers, had 15 years of experience running that company on the mergers and acquisition side. So different type of background. But I said, okay, he came from nothing and built this business up. What makes me any different? What makes me any different if I start thinking about that? And he talked about raising capital. He talked about going to either Yale or Harvard or one of the schools that he was involved in. And the guy had already read his offering memorandum. And he sits down and he starts his pitch. And the guy says, "Hold on. I want you to start over and I want you to say this. Mr. So-and-so, I am here to talk with you about our investment fund. I've got you down for $150 million. Here's where you would sign to take that next step." And Steven Schwartzman was like, "What?" And he says, "Say that word or say that phrase right there." And so Steven did. And the guy signed on the line for $150 million. And he said, "I want you to go to Yale, and I want you to ask for 100. I want you to go to Princeton. I want you to ask for 75, and you let them know that I am in." By the end of the Northeast kind of run, he had raised over $500 million for his fund. So just things like that is just mind-blowing to what I'm doing on a regular basis. But, that guy pressed Steven to think bigger. And now look at Blackstone. I'm not trying to build Blackstone over here, guys, but what I'm trying to build is my own Blackstone. I'm trying to build my own FTW that services that. And the way that I've created this will allow us to do certain things like that, but you have to think like that. And when I heard that, I replayed it 15 times in my car. I had a 30-minute drive. I just listened to that same thing 15 times because I couldn't believe it. I was like, is this true? I mean, is this really in his book? Does that really happen? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And so that was really interesting to me to say, okay, that's really important for me to be focused on. is thinking bigger, getting around people that can do that. So, what do I do? Well, we have the Compression Podcast where we're doing 100 million in total transactions. Well, seems like a pretty big goal for me next year to go raise $100 million into a fund structure to be able to deploy into $400 million worth of commercial real estate over the next 2 to 3 years. Does that sound unattainable? Yes. Does that sound crazy? Yes. Well, guess what? There's people in the space working through that. There's people in the space doing that. There's people focused on that stuff. And so it's a different question that gets me a different one that gets me thinking differently, right? So those were all big wins. The other ones, man, reading, leveling up, talking about what we're talking about. And then I got 20,000 steps in yesterday, which was a huge component of, playing some golf, but also getting out and walking. I've done a much better job with my diet this week. And so I'm very excited about that. I have limited my alcohol consumption to, whenever I go out on date nights with Taylor, she'll ask me if I want a glass of wine at home. I'm like, baby, I'm good. You absolutely have one, but I know my body battery is not going to be very good if I wake up, and I'm waking up 3 hours before you do. So I'm gonna let you have that wine, and you can pour me a little bit if you want me just to have a little glass with you, and we can clink, and I'll have one little sip. But minimizing that has created more energy, more internal drive for me to continue to focus on what I'm trying to accomplish and have that energy. So those are all the big wins from the week, Jerome. Anything that you wanted to touch on before we jump into some of the losses, man?
How's phone downtime going? You still
not good?
Maintaining?
Not good. You guys look at me, I'm scratching my head because I got to be real honest with you. Bella is struggling right now with listening and not being so, I don't know if the word is bossy, but she's coming into her own. By the way, forgot to tell you guys this, Ezra started walking. So Ezra is walking. That's a huge win. Little man is walking all over the place, doing his little thing, which is awesome. He's loving to sleep on me, by the way. He slept on me for an hour and a half this morning. I heard him crying up in the room, and so I took an hour and a half of my morning routine and had my little guy right on my chest, and I'll never trade that time. But from 5 to 6 is dinner time. From 6 to 7, Ezra's going down, and we're spending time with Bella. Taylor and I, 2 nights ago, realized, well, Bella's kind of watching TV. She's kind of playing her games. And what are Taylor and I doing? Well, I'm catching up on emails. I'm catching up on Slack. Taylor's looking at Instagram, whatever she's doing on her phone. And we both looked at each other and said, we've got to put these things away. Because Isabella, we realized she's coming over. She's tapping on us. And she's saying, hey.
With me.
And so, man, that just crushed me. It creeped right back in. You know what I realized I stopped doing, Jerome, was the phone was in the kitchen. It was in the kitchen. It wasn't upstairs in the bedroom. It was in the kitchen. And I had a little phone creep this week, and we both realized it. So that's all my losses here as well. Is I got to get back to putting it in the bedroom and not checking it, man, because it's just it's a house of cards. Once you get started, you're not going to stop, and then you're going to change your state because you see something that you need to take care of. So thank you for asking me about that, and I'm going to be back up in the bedroom with the phone where it needs to be from 5 to 9. So that was a loss.
But you caught it instead of going 6 months and wondering what happened.
That's exactly right. So some other losses, man. I think that the uncomfortable position I have kind of put myself in has created me not sleeping as well. Because whenever I'm uncomfortable, guess what? The wheels are turning. And they're turning while I'm sleeping. And I'm not allowing myself to rest, to truly rest. So body battery has been lower in the mornings when I wake up. It's not because I'm not sleeping. It's not because of the alcohol. It's because I'm not letting go. And I'm not just letting go and letting myself do that. So one thing to combat this, Ed Milet has talked a lot about this on his show. I'm great in the mornings. I'm terrible in the evenings. I have no evening routine. It is something that I have never implemented. I've got to start thinking about how I get a better evening routine, whether that be another round of breathing, whether that be no TV, whether that be something. I've got to start implementing what I can sustain on a regular basis in the evening to allow myself to kind of wind down and get that rest that I actually need.
Are you were dabbling with meditation? Are you meditating?
I meditate in the mornings. I have not done it in the evenings.
Move it to the backside.
Okay.
Right. And then it allows the space for, so it's either meditating or journaling. So it gives the body, the mind, the space to go put stuff in the drawers and organize it all so that you can shut off. Right. And I've heard Tim talk about it where, all right, well, just journal and you get everything out. Or the thing I like is, in 10 minutes is sufficient.
Yep.
Just 10 minutes of quiet after kids are down, dark. And, you know, you can do crazy stuff. I've just watched a candle flicker, right, in a dark room for a while. I just close my eyes and be totally still for 10 minutes. Whatever you want the focus to be, but allowing the mind the time to decompress the stuff from the day and put it into place allows it to shut off so you can get rest.
100%. Okay, we got a new task, and it's going to go on the daily disciplines list for next week. Wind down a routine, 10 minutes of meditation, put the things in the drawer, let it go. All right, guys, those are the losses, and we're going to get into some learnings, which I think we've talked kind of interwoven these into our conversation today. But the first one is this: you get paid in proportion to the size of the problems that you solve. And, you know, if it was easy, everybody'd be lined up to do it, and it's not easy. And so you gotta realize that, and you have to welcome that into your everyday existence. And you gotta think about that a lot. So if the problems that you're solving are small, probably not gonna get paid that well. Now, the bigger problems hurt. They're a little more stressful, but they pay a lot better. So always remember that. The second thing is you got to slow down to go fast. You got to slow down to go fast. And it's a mentality. It sounds kind of weird. Kind of sounds contrarian, but you have to slow down to go fast. And if you're always just running from the loudest to the latest, it's going to be real difficult to have any productive time for yourself. And so I've realized that this week. And after this, I'm going to go hit the links with a couple guys that are very well connected. It's going to help me in the business, but I got to slow down to go fast. I've tried to pack too much into the calendar recently, and I can feel it. I can feel that. So the last thing, I got a quote, but I want to stop there for a second just to kind of get a feeling if we got our point across, the intention of thinking bigger this week, why it matters, how to do it, and maybe some of the roadblocks you might see while you're doing that, Jerome. Is there anything else to add before I end us with a quote that is going to be the perfect cherry on top for this week? So making sure that we got our point across today.
I think the point is across. I'll add that you got to slow down to go fast. To slow is smooth or fast is smooth, right? Anytime there's friction and you're going fast, you lose all your skin, right? But if you're nice and smooth and things are moving the way they're supposed to, then there's not a bunch of drag as you're making that progress. And, some people will say, oh, we'll just muscle through it. We'll get through it. But a lot of times when you force things, you break stuff.
Yep.
And when you break stuff, you got to go back to fix it. And going back to fix it is just the rework. And the whole goal is to continue to go make the journey. I was talking to somebody this morning, or I was talking to Chucky this morning. He's actually out in KC. I need to connect you to. And he was explaining how he had this dream that he had to hold on to for 15 years before he actually accomplished it. Right at 7, he decided he wanted to be an NFL football player. Well, he actually not only became an NFL football player, but a Super Bowl champion, right? But he was like, when I talk to people, they forget about the part of persistence. They forget about endurance, and they just want to sprint. And that isn't how you actually get most things done. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes until you reach the goal.
Right.
And if you're doing anything else, then you might have been interested in the goal, but you weren't committed to the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so do that gut check, ladies and gentlemen. When you're talking about your goals, you talk about the life that you want to live. Is it something that you're just curious about or interested in? Or is it so compelling that you are willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes until you reach that desired outcome?
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Took that from the Marines right there. Grab the smooth handle. That's what you have to do. All right. Cherry on top. It's from our good buddy, the one, the only Tony Robbins. Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. So you have to ask better questions of yourself. Think bigger and go out there and get some. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Compression Podcast. And thank you again so much for everybody that's been reaching out and talking about my corner man, the one, the only Jerome Myers. Thank you for being here today. And we'll tune in again next week, guys.
Got your spit bucket. Let's go.
Hey, compressors. If something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.